So which path is better? Becoming a machine learning engineer or becoming a developer? By a machine learning engineer, basically I mean that becoming a machine learning expert or a data scientist or anything that is related to, machine learning and analytics and working with data basically. And on the other hand, by a developer, I mean a web developer or mobile developer or full stack developer or even a programmer, simple programmer, software engineer, basically. So the first category is basically about working with data and applying machine learning things to that. And the second one is simply developing something. It can be a software or an application or whatever. That's a hard decision to make, I believe, and it depends on different things. So I'm not gonna give you a final answer to this. I'm not gonna tell you which path is better for you to choose or which category is better for you. But rather, I'd like to basically discuss about the nature of each category and show to you how it feels to work in each of these areas, because I have experience pretty much in both worlds. So I have worked as a machine learning expert, I have worked as a data scientist, and I have worked a couple of years as a web developer basically. So pretty much I know how it feels to work in these areas. So I want to give you my knowledge on that, what I felt, what I experienced about those areas, so that way you can understand how it feels to be in each area, and maybe you can basically choose the path you want. I was really curious when I started my career. I was really curious to be a developer. I wanted to build things, I wanted to create applications. So I started with, I remember that it was WordPress, creating some themes for WordPress. Then I started my master's studies and I became really interested in machine learning and doing analytics and working with data basically. But after master's studies, I became a full-time web developer working with Python and Django. And again after that, I became really interested in machine learning. So I started full-time working as a machine learning engineer. And then I became a data scientist, and now again I'm back in web development area for the last 2 years. So the problem here is that I've been always bouncing between these two areas basically, and I couldn't choose a single path because I like to work in both areas, and both of them are really interesting and exciting. So it's really hard to choose which one, you go with for the rest of your life. But what I wanted to insist on and emphasize on in this video is that the reality of each of these categories is completely different from what you see in the news, what you see in the movies, and what you hear all the time about them. So when you hear about, big companies and startups and all the money they make and the funding they get from different sources, you become interested in becoming a developer, a web developer, and you like to create some applications and start making money with that. But the reality is that it's not really like this, and it's not easy like that, because you hear that Mark Zuckerberg probably started Facebook in a couple of weeks, or Jeff Bezos started Amazon in a weekend. And you hear all these stories, but they're not actually true. And especially if you want to work as an employee for somebody else, the reality is completely different. You have a really simple task, you have a small task, daily job to do, and it's completely different from creating a whole application. You have a picture of web development like movies, but then when you start your work, your actual work, your daily work, it's completely different. They give you a really small task to do, and every day you have a features to develop, a bug to fix, and those are just part of the, the bigger project. And there are dozens of developers, at least dozens of developers, who are working on a single project. So you're not visible to them. You're not responsible for the whole project. Even if you go to the toppest level possible, I mean, becoming a tech lead or becoming a CTO even, it's not like that you create the application yourself. You're just responsible to managing other developers. After a while, day by day, you get exhausted, you get tired of doing something simple, something small. And that's the problem. It can be more fun if you work in startups. Basically, they're developing some applications from scratch. So you have a lot of challenging tasks and you have a lot of things to do, and it's a good thing, but it's really difficult because you need to deal with all sorts of difficulties and problems and bugs. There is a good side about it and there is a bad side about it. If you work in a big company, basically they have some applications already developed, so you don't have to do anything but to fix some bugs, the small bugs, and you just need to maintain the program, maintain the application. That's the whole thing you need to do. So after a while, it gets boring for you to work on that. And that's the reality of working in big companies. You are just small part of a big team, a really big team. So you're one developer. And after a while, you don't feel anything about that project. It doesn't feel anything to you. It's boring for you after a while. So you start thinking about moving to another company or actually changing your field. That is what happened to me some years ago. You hear all the time news about, AI and everything you can do with AI, like ChatGPT. Everybody's talking about ChatGPT and what you can with ChatGPT, and everybody is saying that the future is AI and you can do all sorts of things with AI. And now you think that it's time for you to change your field and become a machine learning expert or a data scientist. You hear all the time that they get paid a huge amount of money, and so you think with yourself that, well, this is future, you need to change your path. And everybody's saying to you that if you want to launch a startup, AI is the best field to do that. And if you want to create an application or a startup, it needs to be related to AI because that's the future. You start thinking that I need to be a machine learning engineer and that's the future. But again, the reality is completely different from what you hear. Even if you go to the biggest company in AI, if you go to Google, Amazon, or OpenAI, if you want to work there, your daily job is completely different from what you hear all the time, what you see in the movies, because they give you really a small piece of the puzzle to solve. They want you, work on the parameters of a really simple model to model a really small database. If you want to work on a big project, you're just a part of it. So basically you have some daily tasks to do. They are really small, they are really boring, and after a while you see that it's not exactly what you wanted in the first place. You wanted to create an AI based application from scratch, but now these days you are working on some meaningless tasks, and that's the problem. You see, that's the reality of both worlds. So basically, from far, when you see those jobs, they're all really exciting. But when you want to work actually in the field as an employee, it's something else. And you are responsible for a really small piece, and most of the times it's really boring for you. especially after 1 or 2 years working in a company, working in a single project. After a while, you don't care about any of those areas. At the end, one thing I wanted to talk about is that if you want to, at the end, if you want to launch a startup, which field is better for you? So this is true that basically for the future, working on AI applications is much better. But even in that case, if you want to create a web application or a mobile application, you need to know how to develop those applications. And if you want to work alone, you need to know about web development, about mobile development, and also about machine learning. You can't do it by knowing only one field. You need to learn both if your plan is to launch a startup in the AI world. So that's it pretty much. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time.